Hi everybody, in this video I'm going to be showing you how to make this fingerless mitten. Perfect project for the forthcoming colder months, or you might still just be in the colder months depending on where you live. But it's a really fairly easy project actually if you're familiar with the front post stitch. And these stitches are a mix of a double crochet and a half double crochet mixed together, so I'll show you that as we work on the pattern. And I'm going to be making the other one, which is exactly the same as this. As you can see, this just fits on the other hand as well. It just makes the seam the other side, so they're identical, like so. And let's put that to one side. And you're going to need some bulky, chunky weight yarn, and I've chosen a creamy white colour. And we're going to be needing a 6mm, that's a J crochet hook. And we're going to need some scissors and a yarn needle as well, and an optional cup of coffee if you fancy. So let's begin. Okay, so we're going to be starting with the cuff to begin with, and we're going to work some double crochet foundation stitches. Now I'll show you briefly how to do this, but if you want to know how to do this in more detail, if you're not familiar with it, I'll put a link in the description below to my video that talks specifically about the double crochet foundation stitch, and this basically avoids a tighter edge from chaining. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our 6mm hook and our chunky bulky weight yarn, and we're going to make our little slip knot like so, and then we're just going to chain 2. 1, 2. And then we're going to do a yarn over, and we're going to go into that first chain like so, and we're going to grab our yarn like so and pull it through. So we've got 3 loops, and I'm just going to do a chain 1 for that first loop like so, and then we're going to do our double crochet stitch as normal. So we do a yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through the last 2 loops, and that creates our first double crochet foundation stitch. And we're going to do 23 of those because we're going to count the 2 chains as a double crochet as well, so we're going to end up with 24. So what you do next is you do your yarn over, and then on the left hand side here you can see we've created a stitch. And we're just going to put our hook through that stitch. Like I said, if you want to see this in more detail, you can follow my link in the description to my video on this. So we do our chain 1 for the first, then we do our double crochet as normal. That creates our second. And then we've got another stitch now on the left hand side, so we do yarn over. I'm going to put our hook through that stitch on the left hand side. It's just those 2 lengths of yarn there. And pull your yarn through and do a chain 1 for that first loop, and then do a double crochet stitch as normal, and we now have 3. 1, 2, 3. As you can see, we've created another stitch on the left hand side there, so we do yarn over, and we're going to put it through that stitch, our next stitch, like so, and we do a chain 1 for the first loop, and then do our double crochet as normal. It's always important to remember that little chain 1 for the first loop. And then we got our 4th, and as you can see we've got our next stitch that we've just created here on the left hand side. So we do yarn over, put our hook through that stitch, pull the yarn through, do our chain 1 and do our double crochet as normal. So there we go, and now we've got 5. So we're going to do 23 of those, and we're going to count the 2 chain as a double crochet as well, so we should end up with 24. So I'm just going to carry on until I've done 23 of these. Okay, so I'm just coming up to the last 2. So it's 22 and then 23. And that's our last double crochet foundation stitch, and it should look a little something like that. And now what we're going to do is we're going to bring round the front and making sure you're not twisting it. So we're going to slip stitch into the top of our 2 chain which is going to be, that was our little chain there, and our second one is just there. So it's going to slip stitch into that stitch because we're counting that those 2 chains as a double crochet, like so. Like so, and then you should have formed a ring like so, and you should have, all in all, including your 2 chain, you should now have 24 double crochets. And before, we were working into these left hand side stitches, as you can see there. We would have worked into this next one, but we've formed a loop, and then we're now going to work into these stitches, which technically on the right hand side. And what we're going to do first is we're going to work a double crochet front post stitch around each double crochet that we've just created and our 2 chains. But we're going to do our first double crochet front post stitch not around our 2 chains. That's going to be our last one. That's so we can bridge that gap. So we're going to go into this proper first double crochet foundation stitch and do a front post stitch. If you haven't done the front post stitch before either, I'll put a link in the description below on how to do that in more detail. We're just going to work a double crochet front post stitch around that first double crochet foundation stitch, and we're going to do a double crochet front post stitch around each double crochet foundation stitch, like so. And just repeat that round. Okay, so I'm just getting near to the end. It's coming up to the last 2, and we just go around that last one there, and then what you need to do is making sure you've got your project lined up properly, no twists, is we're then going to work our last double crochet front post stitch around our 2 chains, which is there, and that's just to bridge the gap in between. But what you can do, and what I have done on the other glove, is use your tail yarn to just sew the remaining gap, the little gap there closed if you wanted to, if that annoys you. I'll show you at the end. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to carry on working double crochet front post stitches around and around, and we're going to do that for another 5 rows, no, another 4 rows. Yeah, 4 rows. So another 4 rows. We're not going to join or slip stitch. We're going to go straight into that next front post stitch there and work another double crochet front post stitch around the previous double crochet front post stitch. It's going to carry straight on working around. So you're going to keep doing this until you've done another 4 rounds. Rounds, not rows. What am I talking about? Like so. So I'm just going to do that. I'm going to do another 4 rounds, and then I'm going to come back. And then in total, from the very beginning to where you need to end up, you should have 6 rounds all in all, including your foundation stitches. Okay, so just carry on doing another 4 rounds of these double crochet front post stitches, and without joining the rounds, you just need to just keep going round and round and round, and then I'll come back. And as you can see, it's starting to create the ribbing effect. Okay, so I'm just coming up to the very, very last double crochet front post stitch, and it should line up with your chains from your very first round. So it's going to be, your very last one is going to be around this double crochet here, like so. Okay, so when you've done those 6 rounds from the very beginning, I'm just going to slip stitch into the next stitch, like so. And then we're going to work this pattern now, and to do that, all you need to do is we're going to chain 2, which we're going to count as a stitch, just chain 2, and then we're going to work this special cluster, which is going to be a merge of a double crochet and a half double crochet. And to do that, we're going to start off doing a yarn over, then go into the next stitch, pull the yarn through, and then pull through the first 2 loops as if you were doing like a double crochet or half of a double crochet. But then we're going to do a yarn over, and we're going to put the hook back in the same stitch, so we end up with 4 loops. Then we're going to do a yarn over and pull through all 4, and that's kind of like a half double crochet and a double crochet merged together, and that completes our first cluster. So to show you that again, we do a yarn over and put the hook in the next stitch and pull through, then a yarn over and pull through the first 2 as if you were doing a double crochet, but we stop there and we do a yarn over, go back into the same stitch and pull the yarn up, so you've got 4 loops, then a yarn over, pull through all 4 loops, and that creates the little special merged cluster. So we're just going to repeat that round to the very beginning, back to the beginning. So go into the next stitch, pull through 2 loops, oops, not 3, 2, as if you were doing the beginnings of a double crochet, like so. So you've got 2 loops, then a yarn over, go through into the same stitch again, pull through, so you've got 4 loops, then yarn over, pull through all 4 loops. So just repeat that round back to the beginning, and then we're just going to slip stitch into the top of our 2 chain to join the round. Okay, so we're just coming up to the very last stitch here, which again lines up with our 2 stitches from the beginning, our 2 chains, and we're just going into that last stitch and doing our very last cluster. And all we're going to do is just going to slip stitch into the top of our 2 chain. These 2 chains do count as a stitch, and each cluster counts as 1 stitch because you're technically crocheting 2 stitches together. So we're just going to slip stitch into the top of our 2 chain to join the round. So we're going to be joining rounds now, like so. Okay, and that completes our first round of our little cluster pattern, and we need to do another, how many rounds do we need to do of that? We need to do, so that's round 7, and we need rounds 8 to 12, so that's 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, so that's 5 more rounds of just repeating that again. So we're going to do 5 more rounds of these clusters. So, and all you do to begin the round is dial chain 2 again, which counts as a stitch, and you just work your clusters like you did before straight into the next stitch, like so. And then when you get to the end of the round, you just slip stitch into the top of the 2 chain to join the round. So do 5 more rounds of these clusters, and then we'll come back. Okay, so I'm just coming up to the last one, and I actually ran out of yarn, so I've had to substitute it for another yarn just to finish this video. So you're probably going to need 2 good balls of your chosen yarn, or you could just use an alternative colour for the cuff and then a different colour for the main part if you wanted to. But yeah, I'm just going to slip stitch into the top of our 2 chain to complete our last round for now. I always struggle with that on camera, like so. Okay, so you should have, all in all, you should have 6 rounds of these clusters. And what we're going to do now is we're going to chain 3. We're going to chain 3, and the first 2 chain, they're all going to count as, the first 2 are going to count as a stitch, and then the 3rd chain is going to count as a stitch as well. So you've technically got 2 stitches. You'll see why in a minute. So you need to chain 3, and then we're going to skip 6 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you need to do yarn over and go into the 7th stitch, like so, and then do your cluster that you've been doing before, like so, and this creates the thumb area, and then you just need to carry on doing the clusters around the other stitches back to the beginning. Oops. Like so. And when you get back to the beginning, what you need to do is to slip stitch into the second chain of the 3 that you did at the beginning. So we're just going to slip stitch into our second chain. I'm just going to work it like a normal stitch, like so. And then that completes our round, and you should have 19 stitches now. And what we're going to do for the next round is we're just going to chain 2, get it on camera, chain 2, and then we're going to work our cluster, our first cluster, in that 3rd chain, so that's in the next stitch there. I'm just going to work that as a normal stitch as well. By catching the 2 pieces of yarn. So just work your cluster into that chain. Like so. And then just go straight into the next stitch as normal and work your next cluster. And then just do your clusters around as normal until you get back to the beginning. Okay, so I'm just coming up to the last cluster of that round. And then all we need to do is just slip stitch in the top of our 2 chain like we've been doing before. Like so. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to chain 2, and then we're going to work a cluster into each stitch around as we've been doing before, and then this is our last round, like so. Okay, so I'm just coming up to the last cluster on that round. This is our very last cluster. Then we just slip stitch into the top of our 2 chain, like we've been doing before. And we're done. And then we're just going to fasten off, like so. And there we have our second glove, and as you can see the yarn difference actually when I ran out of this yarn, and I think I've actually used an Aran worsted weight yarn instead of the chunky, but which has created a gappier effect actually. So obviously it still creates the same size mitten using this hook, 6mm hook, but if you did prefer a slightly looser knit, then using an Aran worsted weight yarn would create that effect, but a chunky bulky weight yarn will create a tighter knit, so it's entirely up to you. So it's quite a fortunate accident, I think. So all that's left to do is to tie in our tails, which I'll do on camera, like so, and all I'm going to do is just go down into the next stitch, halfway through the next stitch. This is what I do. Pull that tightly, and then I always work the tail ends in on the inside, and what I do is I just go down like so, just like that, and then I go back the other way again, sorry about the car noise, and then I just go back and down again, and that usually does me okay. And then you can trim any excess off, and the other tail end, which down here. And what I do for this, because some of you may not like the very slight V-shaped gap that's created by the double crochet foundation stitch, is I just sew into the previous stitch and then pull it tight, and it closes that gap. and then I work the yarn to the inside, like so, and I just do what I did for the other tail end, and that's sew down and then sew back. Helps when the yarn's in the needle, like so, like that. You can go back down again if you've just got enough room, like so, and then trim any excess off. My daughter seems to be very funny. And there we go, there's our completed second mitten. So all that's left to do is to put it on and put the other one on, and there we go. There we have, obviously you won't have the difference in yarn, but at least by that happening it's given you the choice of to see what it looks like in a worsted Aran weight yarn or with the chunky knit, so it still fits. And these, for an average lady's size, they've got quite a lot of room to manoeuvre, so they should fit most sizes. And there you go, there's your completed fingerless mittens, and I actually really like those, even with the strange difference in yarn on my one. I may actually just keep it like that. Teach me a lesson to never, always make sure you've got enough yarn for your projects. So I hope you enjoyed that tutorial, and yeah, if you want some more patterns and freebies, you can go to where can you go to? You can go to happyberrycrochet.blogspot.com, or you can go to my website at happyberry.co.uk, or you can join me on facebook.com/happyberrycrochet as well. And yeah, so please subscribe, and I'll see you soon for some more crochet fun. Thanks for watching. Bye. Bye. These are really comfy. I can still use an iPad or whatever, but still keep my hands warm. Oh. And whenever I make mittens with cuffs like this, I always try them on this way and see what it would look like for the beginnings of a jumper. Anyway, I'll see you soon. Bye.